If it's not been made obvious by the games I have a tendency to cover on this show, I have an extreme bias towards colorful, goofy, fun characters. Want me to race? Goofy characters. Want me to shoot? Goofy characters. I just personally find it much harder to be interested in games that want to be all dark, realistic and stuff. Like, I bleed in real life, I don't need to see it in video games. This, shall we say, common aversion to this type of content is a large part of the reason that Nintendo won my heart at a young age and just hasn't let go. Sure, PlayStation has Crash and Spyro winning them plenty of points, but they certainly seem much more interested in tapping into an audience that's less me, and at no moment was this more apparent than back when I played PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Being someone who, especially at the time, had extremely little knowledge of PlayStation, this roster didn't make me scream, boy, I really want to try the home series of all these fun characters. It was more like, oh, these are the people I stay 10 feet away from at gas stations. But if there was one exception to this rule, it was my main, Spike, from, Chimp Disappearance. I didn't know what the hell an Ape Escape was back then, but there were monkeys with hats, see a bucket list, I'm in. And then like 8 years passed, but hey, Ape Escape 2 was just available on the PS4 for like $4, so I say better late than never. From what I can gather, being someone who's never played the first game, it's about a monkey named Spectre who, after being equipped with a special helmet by some professor, becomes not only incredibly smart, but also evil. He uses this newfound power to give a bunch of other monkeys helmets and make them do his bidding. Playing as Spike, you track down the monkeys and stop their mischief in an attempt to take Spectre down. Spoiler alert, they succeed, and were brought promptly into this game. The professor goes off to gamble at a casino and leaves Spike's cousin, resident idiot Hikaru, to deal with transporting a bunch of new monkey pants to Monkey Park. How did I describe him in that last sentence? I'm just gonna assume I said genius, because not only does he transport a bunch of monkey pants, he also transports more monkey helmets. You'd think after the first game they would maybe, I don't know, not make any more? Of course, one of these dropped helmets lands on Spectre, who immediately rebuilds his monkey army and goes right back to trying to take over the world, which means it's up to Jimmy to stop him. I mean Hikaru. So I just need to get this out of the way right now. For some reason, the version of this game on the American PS4 store is the European version of the game, and the European version inexplicably uses the Japanese names rather than the English ones. I don't mind the names themselves, obviously, it just feels weird hearing these intensely European-sounding voices saying names like Hikaru and Natsumi. Luckily, it's made up for by the fact that the European dub is f***ing terrible. Look, it's a game about catching monkeys. I'd be shocked if it didn't sound campy and ridiculous, but this is honestly taking it a little far.
No, that's not the point.
Don't worry though, us Europeans aren't missing out on too much. The American versions are only voiced by literally the voices of Ash and Misty, son of a bitch! I was gonna praise this game for being fully voice acted, but now I just hate a continent. The main game formula is interesting. I suppose you could call it a collectathon, but that doesn't really fit. You've got a tiny little hub room of sorts being the professor's lab, which takes you to small open platforming stages. They do mix things up in some of the later levels, but otherwise it pretty much always boils down to finding a certain number of monkeys in each world and catching them in your net. And I do have plenty of positive things to say about this game, but this just drove me insane, so let me get it out first. This game commits one of the most baffling sins I've experienced in quite a while, and that's being a post-Mario 64 3D platformer with no camera controls. There are games that make this work, such as the original Crash trilogy, but that's far more linear, and the developers can put the camera exactly where it needs to be for you to see. In this, the stages are fully open like Mario, and you just can't move it. L1 does turn it ever so slightly towards the direction you're facing, but that's far from a solution. Obviously, if you play hours and hours of a game, you're gonna get a lot better at it, but I would be lying if I said I ever fully adapted to it. The Ape Escape series actually started with the first ever game to require the DualShock, and they did everything in their power to make you use it, giving this game a hell of an unconventional control scheme. You move around with the left stick, okay, R1 and R2 make you jump, ew, the face buttons change what you're holding, and the right stick uses what you're holding. Look, as far as I'm concerned, as long as you can consistently get your character moving in the ways you want, any control scheme is a fine one. It's just kind of annoying having to overwrite decades of muscle memory to play this properly, and the hitboxes are small enough that getting the right angle on the joystick to swing your weapon can take a good bit of just swinging at nothing. Something I didn't really expect was how much of an emphasis is placed on different gotcha gadgets that do all kinds of different things. We've got 11 of them in this game, and switching between them in different scenarios is the key to victory. While most of them are clearly designed with very specific uses in mind, I love how some make it so you can essentially approach any monkey catching crouching situation in 100 different ways. Maybe you'll distract them with the smell of banana, maybe you'll fly above them and drop the net down right on top of them, or maybe you'll crash an RC car into them and catch them while they stumble. It's a really unique system. Though, as is often the case in this game, I have at least one complaint, and that's that you can only equip 4 of them at a time. In the earlier levels, this isn't a big deal at all. Just assign the new one they just gave you over one that seems less useful. But when you get to the later stages and they're asking you to use all of them, it gets tedious to open the menu and switch to the one you need in one of your 4 slots, only to find out 8 seconds later that you need that one you just overwrote, so back into the menu with you. Plus, the stun club and net are pretty much universally necessary, so you might as well only have 2 slots. I think it would have worked much better if approaching a puzzle that requires one specific gadget just automatically activated it. As usual with this game, it's not really a big deal, but the tedium definitely adds up. At first, I also wasn't the biggest fan of how you have to spin the joystick to use most of them. It gives me a real big left brain, right brain issue, but I certainly got more used to this, and I think I ended up liking this more than if it was just tilting. I think my favorite one had to be the Sky Flyer. It has overall less interesting uses, but it's just far more universally useful. A magnet is only going to do so much, and only at specific times, but the flyer basically just adds another movement option to your arsenal and surely saved me from death plenty of times. Although that means I use it so often that I basically only have 1 item slot. Okay, Ape Escape fans, I am sure I have pissed plenty of you off by now, but rest assured, in terms of the main game, I have nothing but positives left for this entire video. But before we get to the main story, however, I think it's only right that I talk about what else is going on in the professor's lab. The big thing your eyes are likely to be drawn to right away is the gacha box, where you can spend 10 of the coins you've collected from levels to receive a random prize. Some of these are pretty dang cool, like full comic strips, concept art, and on-demand access to songs from the soundtrack. I generally found myself just grabbing a couple of these between stages now and then, although I did at one point hit the 999 limit and sat down to dump all of them in at once. Aside from that, this game coincidentally decides to stand right next to another monkey franchise, Super Monkey Ball, by including 3 full-fledged minigames. Dance Monkey Dance is basically just the first rhythm game I'm viciously bad at, Monkey Soccer is, get this, soccer, and Monkey Climber is... Holy sh**. The main story has 20 standard levels where you're dropped in, occasionally with a new gadget, and attempt to catch however many monkeys it asks of you. I love these level themes. Honestly, no 2 of them really feel too much alike. Not only do you get plenty of monkey-themed environments, but there's almost always a good percentage of them that are dressed up for the occasion. If it wasn't obvious, the monkeys are the main source of humor in this game, and it totally worked on me. I just can't help but crack a smile when I see them riding in a sleigh, being stuck in the sand, coldly taking the shot directly into my face with an unflinching stare. If there's one thing I'd have liked to see changed though, it's the fact that you're pulled out of a level as soon as you meet the goal. I get that they want you to come back later to explore the rest, but it's kind of annoying when there are only like 2 monkeys left and I just want to see the rest of this fun stage, come on! Another thing that helps these levels stand out is the soundtrack, which I legitimately enjoyed a lot. None of the melodies stuck out as ones that I'll likely find myself singing on my own time, but I was at least humming along by the end of pretty much every stage. To my knowledge, it was all composed by Koji Hayama, and he nailed the whimsical sound that fits so well with these monkeys and especially the environments they're hanging around in. In fact, I might go as far as to say that this is some of the most fitting level music I've ever heard, and it wouldn't shock me at all if they were watching the gameplay while composing it. And what would a 3D platformer be without boss fights? Introducing the Freaky Monkey 5, my favorite sex move. They're an elite group of 5 uniquely colored monkeys that Spectre has trained on a strict diet of special Vita-Z bananas that make them stronger. They make up 6 of the boss fights in this game, with one of them coming back for a rematch that I will not dare spoil for you. While the first couple are a little too simple and kinda fall flat, the rest of them are simply delightful. It's hard to say whether I prefer these over the normal stages or not, but one thing I can say for sure is that they're 100 times more memorable, with my favorite definitely being the fight with Red Monkey. He f***ing suplexes dinosaurs, I love this guy. Not only that, he also plays a key role in a simple little plot point that I found myself really loving. Throughout the early parts of the game, you have an adorable baby monkey named Pipochi riding on your head. He can save you from falling, revive you if you die, I love him! But when the professor re-enters the story, you lose Pipochi for a while. Spending all this time without him makes you really appreciate him when he comes back to help again. At the start of the White Monkey fight, though, Red Monkey swoops in and steals him. All this setup gives you such great motivation to get your little buddy back, since you know so thoroughly what it's like with and without him. I love how they executed this. After finishing out the boss fight I won't spoil, as well as a legitimately kinda difficult platforming stage, Spectre reveals that his master plan is to use his newly built lethargy laser to blast the earth and make all humans incapable of resisting his world domination. With this knowledge, Hikaru and Pipochi chase him into space for one final stage, putting everything you've learned to the test, and honestly, it's a pretty fantastic level. Not only is it the hardest one by far, it just keeps going. Alright, let's take him down. Shh, there's more? Alright, let's take him down. Jesus Christ! But once you claw your way to the top, it's time for the final showdown, which was a pretty stellar boss fight that I'm, again, trying not to fully spoil. If I have one complaint with it, it's that you really have to be using certain gadgets to be able to win, and that's not clear in the least bit going in, so unless you think extremely fast or know beforehand, you're gonna take some hits that don't feel quite fair. Once Spectre's defeated though, Hikaru is narrowly able to catch him, thus saving the world. And that's the end of Ape Escape 2. Generally when I go into a new series, I'm cautiously optimistic, but this is a rare case where I pretty much knew I was going to love this game, and was 100% correct. It's just infinitely charming, and catching monkeys just never really got boring. Ironically, being forced to play the European version actually ended up adding another layer of charm for me, since Europeans don't mind people, or apparently monkeys, saying words like damn. Without a doubt, I will be playing the other two games in the trilogy someday, but for now, I got my own monkeys to catch. The game never prepared me for this.